afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for
Hello, everyone.
d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. My name is Kina Leclerc and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Kina Leclerc et je serai l'animatrice de ce point de presse. Before we begin, a quick reminder to place your phone on mute until I invite you to speak or to ask your question. And please do not place the call on hold. Available for questions from the media, we have, disponible pour répondre aux questions des médias, nous accueillons in Council Chambers, Mayor, le Maire, Jim Watson, Steve Canelakos, City Manager, Directeur Municipal, and Anthony DiMonte, General Manager of Emergency and Protective Services, Directeur Général des Services de Protection et d'Urgence. Phoning in today, we have Councillor Keith Eglai, Chair, Ottawa Public Health Board, le conseiller Keith Eglai, Président du Conseil de Santé d'Ottawa, Councillor Jan Harder, Chair, Planning Committee, la conseillère Jan Harder, Présidente du Comité de l'Urbanisme, la docteure Vera Etches, Medical Officer of Health, médecin-chef en santé publique, Dr. Trevor Arneson, Associate Medical Officer of Health, Ottawa Public Health, médecin adjoint en santé publique Ottawa, Dan Chenier, General Manager, Recreation, Cultural and Facility Services, Directeur général des loisirs, de la culture et des installations, Donna Gray, General Manager, Community and Social Services, Directrice générale des services sociaux et communautaires, as well as members from her team, ainsi que plusieurs membres de son équipe. We also have phoning in Marie-Claude Turcotte, Manager of Immunization at Ottawa Public Health, gestionnaire d'immunisation, santé publique d'Ottawa. I will now invite each agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. Par ordre alphabétique, j'invite maintenant.
By alphabetical order, I ask any agency to ask their question and a follow-up question. Commençons.
Who do we have on the line from CBC? Is it Kate or Joanne? Moving on, we will go to Eric O'Brien at City News.
Thank you. My question is for Mayor Watson. Why was it important to see, not to see delays today on the city expansion, and we could talk about Tewin as well?
Sorry, Eric, I didn't catch the first part of your question.
My apologies. Why was it important, to move forward with this project? There's a number of motions that came out today on possibly putting delays on the expansion project moving forward. Why was it important to move forward with it?
Well, I think for a couple of reasons. First, it's not just about the Tewin lands, it's about the official plan. And we heard very clearly from staff, if we start putting roadblocks and obstacles and delays, it's going to cost us a lot more money. It's going to bring greater uncertainty. We end up potentially having the province involved in our official plan. We'd rather do it ourselves here with our local input from our residents. So by and large, a good majority of council felt we were on the right track and we should move forward with both the Tewin lands, but also the other projects that will ensure that we have the necessary housing for a city that a lot of people want to move to. And it's a city that's growing quickly. We reached the million+ mark a few years ago, and we have to ensure that we have enough land to build houses for the future, a 15-year supply according to the province. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. Maybe as a follow-up, there was a lot of talk about reconciliation today, and coming from the Algonquins of Ontario and from City Council. Maybe give a little bit more explanation on how the city is moving forward with this.
Yeah, I don't know if Jan wanted to offer a comment as well as Chair of Planning. She did a lot of the heavy lifting along with Eli El-Shantiri, the Chair of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. The reality is that the Algonquins of Ontario purchased this land at fair market value from the province of Ontario, and they want to create a environmentally sustainable community in the East End. We heard from a number of East End councillors that they too want to see some economic development, so it's not just bedroom communities in the East End, but there's employment opportunities, there's real 15-minute neighborhoods. And we felt that the proposal, the majority of council felt the proposal was very valid and very sound. Obviously, a lot of work to do between now and September on all aspects of the plan, not just the Tewin. And this is an opportunity for members of the Algonquins of Ontario to benefit from some of the economic opportunities that our city offers. Many of our citizens, unfortunately, our First Nations, have not benefited to the degree that they should in terms of an opportunity to develop from the ground up a very exciting, environmentally sustainable community by the Algonquins of Ontario Nation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we will go to CTV Ottawa. Who do we have on the line?
It's Josh Pringle.
Go ahead, Josh.
My first question is for Dr. Etches and for Mayor Watson. There's been a lot of talk over the past week about the Ontario government considering canceling March break or postponing March break. Do either one of you support delaying March break or canceling March break in a bid to limit the spread of COVID-19?
Dr. Etches?
Mayor, yes, Mayor, if you like. Thank you. I actually don't have a fixed position about March break and whether it should be canceled or deferred. What I'm very focused on is that what we need to mitigate is social gatherings of children with children from other households outside of school. So we saw that the school environment has different levels of protection, screening people out who have symptoms, the masks, the distancing, the structure, the cohort, so that if someone does test positive, we follow up. And in the home environment, there's that relaxation of distance, there's no masks, and that's where we see COVID being transmitted. So we have to just be careful when we have more time to socialize that we still choose those activities that are less of a risk for COVID transmission by being outside, limiting that close contact with others. And that's the main consideration for me.
And my follow-up question for Mayor Watson. Today, the Quebec government said that they were looking at setting up checkpoints once again across Quebec and also at the Ontario-Quebec border to limit travel during the March break. Is that something that, once again, you do not support, or this time would you like to see some ways to stop travel over March break in Ontario and in Quebec?
Yeah, Josh, that's a good question. Ultimately, it's up to the Quebec government to make that decision on their side of the river. I said at the time when the Sûreté du Québec did that last time, I didn't find it particularly effective because people knew where there were hours when the police were not there and they just go over, or they have to go over because they work at Place de Portage or Terrasse de la Chaudière on the Gatineau side, and people in Gatineau work in our hospital system and vice versa. So we certainly have no plans to do that. In discussions I had many weeks ago with Chief Slowly, he would not support it either. He thinks it would be an unwise use of scarce resources to have officers there, checking people, across the 5 bridges. So from my perspective, I don't think it's that effective, and it's not something that we're pursuing. I think we've, people have been doing a very good job. I think Dr. Etches will agree, and it's one of the reasons why we're being considered to go into the orange zone on Tuesday and open up like we did before Christmas, restaurants and gyms and shops and so on with certain parameters. So we have to continue to be vigilant, encourage people, please do not cross into the other border, stay within your own community, because the last thing we need is us doing really well and then we open up the economy and then the numbers go back up. And then we have to bear the bad news to those businesses, through the province. You're going to have to shut down again. That would be devastating. These small business people have worked tirelessly to salvage their business, and my message is, go out and support those local businesses, do so safely, but please, this is not the time to go traveling or take a trip anywhere outside your own community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we will go to Craig Lord at Global News. Craig, are you on the line? Nous allons maintenant passer à Julien.
Let's give the floor to Julien Paquette from Le Droit. Hello? The question is for Mayor Watson. During the meeting of the joint committee that happened 2 weeks ago for the Tewin land project, even though it was a Category 3 land, you were talking about reconciliation at the time. Do you think that this project is still an act of reconciliation? We heard different comments today. For me, Julien, it's an act of reconciliation for the Algonquin of Ontario. They think that this is the case right now, and that's the reason why the majority of the council supported the recommendation of the Planning Committee and the Rural Committee. Thank you. Okay, let's change topic. I do understand that there's some certain uncertainty about the light train station at the Ottawa airport. Do you think that this station will be ready at the same time as the rest of the phase 2 of the Trillium track? Good question. It's one of my priorities. We had an agreement with the Ottawa airport to build a station at the airport. This was part of the light train phase 2. I received a letter from Monsieur Laroche. There's a big challenge for all the major airports within the country. That's the reason why I wrote to the Minister of Transportation of the federal government to receive help on behalf of the Ottawa airport. As you know, Minister Freeland, Minister of Finance, announced a program that will support airports, such as the Montreal Airport, and they have to have the same consideration for the Ottawa International Airport. I participated in a teleconference yesterday. Monsieur Laroche was on the call, and he said that there's only 6 flights per day now at the Ottawa airport. I can't remember what it was pre-COVID. I think it was more like 100, 150 flights per day. So it's quite a challenge for the Ottawa airport. Though I do believe that we would be able to convince the federal government to help funding the construction of the light train station. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Porter from CBC on the line.
Yes, hi everybody. Mayor Watson, I was wondering, we've heard all sorts of things today about reconciliation, and yet, you know, given some of the comments, especially by leaders on the Quebec side and Elder Commanda, you could say relationships have been damaged by this. I wonder if you would have done anything differently in how this all played out.
I support the Planning Committee ARAC recommendations that came forward. I think it's a very thoughtful plan to help the Algonquins of Ontario. They believe it's reconciliation, and I'm not going to second-guess their views on that. I think it's a very exciting project that is going to help both the Algonquins of Ontario Nation as well as the east end of the city of Ottawa. And I very much look forward to continuing that dialogue. There's obviously a difference of opinion, and a great difference of opinion between some, some members of the Algonquin nations, particularly on the Quebec side. But when all is said and done, this does boil down to a planning issue and a land development issue. It's not a treaty issue. This is land that the Algonquins, as you know, purchased at full market value from the province of Ontario with the intention of building their own community on the Ontario side of the border. Thank you.
And my follow-up, it being a planning issue, I know the staff report had originally intended to try to limit, the costs of extra infrastructure, extra transit by sticking close to where all is already developed. How concerned are you that creating an entirely new area will create a lot of cost for the city? And what would you say to residents who might be concerned that, creating a whole new community might lead to future costs down the road for the city?
That's excuse me, Kate, that's a very valid point, but I think one of the motions that was brought forward was to ensure that above and beyond the written commitments from the Algonquins of Ontario and Taggart and the written commitments that they've provided, the oral commitments and the written commitments, that is part of any document on a go-forward basis when we come back in September to deal with it in its entirety. You have to remember that, as was asked, one member of council asked, I think Mr. Willis, what happens with the costs of infrastructure on the site? Well, that is the obligation of the proponent. It always has been, through DCs and building roads and pipes and so on. So I have every confidence that they will be treated exactly the same way as any other new community, whether it's Riverside South or Finley Creek or Avalon or New Barrhaven, Old Barrhaven. So the reality is, we need to expand our city because our city is a desirable place to live. I think it was something like 26 people a day moved to Ottawa, and that's one of the reasons why we surpassed the 1 million population mark a couple of years ago. And the alternative, of course, is to put more intensification in the downtown. And you've seen, as well as I, every time there's a major intensification project, there tends to be a lot of local opposition to it. And so, if we're going to, minimize urban boundary expansion, we have to grow up and not grow out. And where we do grow out, it should be done in a holistic approach so we can create both an environmentally sustainable community like the Algonquins of Ontario want, plus one that is, compact and can create an opportunity for not only jobs, but also, you can walk to the grocery store and you can go and work within the community. And we heard from our East End councillors there's a desperate need for greater opportunities for people to live, work, and play in their neighborhoods, so it does not just become a commuter-driven community or a bedroom community, but one that allows people to live there, potentially work there, retire there, play sports there, etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we will go to Sue Sharing from On the City from the Burbs.
No questions today, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. We will now be going to John Willing at the Ottawa Citizen.
Thanks, Keena. Hi, Mayor. I'm wondering with regards to Tewin, if the Algonquins of Ontario weren't involved with this project, it was just simply a local developer pitching the exact same project, do you think council would still look at it favorably?
I think it might be probably a harder sell, to be perfectly honest. I think there was a lot of enthusiasm by my colleagues on council that wanted to see the Algonquins of Ontario participate in an opportunity to share in the economic growth and wealth of our city. So I think it probably garnered more support because of their involvement. But we also recognize, and planning probably better than I do, John, there is a need for increased communities, and just as I think Kate raised the question about, excuse me, how neighborhoods are evolving. Well, we had the same debates with Barrhaven, with Orleans, with Riverside South, and with Canada. Over many, many decades, these communities are built up because there's a demand for people to live in affordable housing, and sometimes it's more affordable farther out because the land values are less expensive than it is in the inner core. But what we're trying to do is to create a community really under the guidance of the Algonquins of Ontario and their partner. And I look forward to working with them, as we do with other proponents that want to build mostly housing in different parts of the city. And as you know, as I mentioned earlier, it's often a battle royale when it comes to intensification. We had a really great project right where the old trailhead is in the West End, which is literally across the street from the future Westboro LRT station. We had members of council vote against that project. Well, if we're serious about transit-oriented development, that, you know, is one we should have embraced unanimously. So the bottom line is that, you know, people don't want intensification. This will take some of the pressure off in the urban core by creating a new community in the East End, which is underpopulated and does not have the business or commercial opportunities to allow people to live and work in the East End. That's why, you know, we worked hard. For instance, the Amazon property, I think, has about 800 or 900 people. So that was the single largest investment in jobs in the East End, and it's literally just down the road from the Tewin lands. And that will then encourage transit to go into that location to service the underserviced train station at Searville to get people downtown. Thank you.
Thanks for that response, Mayor. A follow-up, speaking on the topic of Battle Royale, we're talking about Lansdowne Park today. At Council set your sponsors group, and I'm wondering when that consultation is going to start and what form do you foresee the consultation happening, certainly with the restrictions we're experiencing during the pandemic.
I'll ask the city manager, because it'll be run out of his department, but I should just offer, because no one's asked me the question, I'm just going to ask it myself. The Prime Minister, as you know, made a significant announcement today of $3 billion in a permanent transit fund starting in 2026. I just want to give my perspective as Mayor of Ottawa. This is very good news because, as you know, Phase 3 of LRT is Barrhaven, Stittsville, and Canada. And I think the announcement the Prime Minister made today is great news because there is now a permanent fund that we will then start working with our federal partners and hopefully matched by the provincial partners so that we can expand the benefits of LRT to those fast-growing communities of Stittsville, Barrhaven, and Canada. So I'll ask Steve to talk about Lansdowne.
Hi, John. Yeah, right now, that was the last piece that had to be put in place, the two sponsorship groups for council. The working group has been established. It's led by Steve Willis, and there's a membership that we've assigned to that group to help him work that through. We see no impediments to the consultation. I mean, we've been doing consultation on a number of issues, including the official plan during the entire pandemic, and we're going to proceed on that basis. It'll be virtual, but I think that we will be able to meet our obligations and be able to get back to council this summer with recommendations.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much. We will now be going to Laura Egertson at the Ottawa Magazine. Laura, are you on the line? Okay, we will now go to Taylor Blewett at the Ottawa Sun.
Hi, Dr. Etches and Mayor Watson. I'm hoping you can both comment on the allegation that my colleague Liz Payne has reported on that a housekeeper at the Sterling Park retirement community was bumped from the COVID-19 vaccine queue last weekend so a manager's wife could be vaccinated instead. And if anybody else wants to weigh in, of course, I would welcome that as well.
Doctor, do you want to start and then I'll offer my comment?
Yes. Certainly. It's a serious allegation. Ottawa Public Health received a complaint about a person receiving a vaccine at the retirement home who wasn't eligible for the vaccine. We're following the provincial direction on who's eligible in Phase 1, and in particular right now that residents of retirement homes be prioritized. We know that the Director of Care at Sterling Park Retirement Home provided the list of names of persons to be vaccinated at the home, and we are undertaking a quality review with this Director of Care regarding this incident. We, in our conversations to facilitate immunization at retirement homes, certainly review the eligibility with all of the directors of care and operators. We go through this in meetings, and we follow up with written materials that explain who is eligible. We also are working with anyone involved. There's many different immunizers who play a role, whether it's physicians in the home or paramedics, or we've had help from community physicians and the Queensway Carleton, our own nurses. We're all part of the process and focused on making sure that the vaccines go to the eligible residents.
Let me, excuse me, Taylor. Let me just offer a comment. I think that it's despicable and deplorable that someone would do that, and we saw that same situation or similar situation happen in Vaughan, and I would have hoped that that would have sent a signal to the rest of the country and the rest of Ontario not to do something that despicable. We even saw that case of the BC couple going to the Yukon. We can't vaccinate everyone overnight. We have to look at the list that's been provided from these homes and prioritize our most vulnerable, our senior citizens. And so if it's proven, I would hope that the company would take some pretty drastic action to deal with that individual, to send a very clear message that that is not acceptable behavior by a healthcare professional from the retirement home. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And just to follow up on that, more generally, do you think more needs to be put in place to prevent those who shouldn't be accessing a vaccine from doing so? And is this a problem we've seen locally, people attempting to do this?
Well, we have not seen this evidence of people outside of the eligibility groups accessing vaccine. Ottawa Public Health will certainly carry out the quality review and see if there are things it can do to strengthen how people understand and follow the eligibility criteria. It's something we've reported to the ministry as well, so that we know the ministry is also taking a look at making sure these kinds of unacceptable situations don't happen.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Nous allons maintenant passer à Antoine.
Now, Antoine Trépanier from Radio-Canada, you have the floor. Hello. I have a question for Mayor Watson. I just talked avec Elder Commanda. There were no reconciliation in the Tewin file. This was the base of the arguments 2 weeks ago and today again. We saw the elected members talking about reconciliation today. So is there really a reconciliation process within the City of Ottawa? Are you really hearing them? As you know, the Algonquin of Ontario told to the committee and to the council that this would be a reconciliation case for the Algonquin of Ontario. I do know that we have divergent opinion with the Algonquin on the other side of the Ottawa River. I do respect this opinion. It is not the responsibility of an elected member of the City Council to say if this is a reconciliation case or not. If this is such a case, it's their opinion. Follow-up question? The federal government made an announcement today. Do you think that there's an opening right now for a tramway with the Gatineau and with an interconnection with the light train? Do you think that this is the step that was missing? Of course, I do think that this is a very good news, not only for our light rail train for the Phase 3 with Barrhaven, Stittsville, and Canada. This is a good news also for the mayor, Pedro Jobin, and the resident of the city of Gatineau. Because for the first time in Canada's history, we had a permanent fund for transport for the municipality in Canada. I was on the Zoom conference with the Prime Minister today, with the Prime Minister Legault today also. I'm very happy. I think this is good for the city of Gatineau. It is very important for us in Ottawa to have better links between the two municipalities. Many are working in Gatineau, living in Ottawa, and vice versa. So for us, we had and we have to improve the options to make sure that they can travel on both sides of the river. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Laura Egertson is back on the line from Ottawa Magazine. Go ahead, Laura.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, thanks. Just wondering if Anthony and perhaps Dr. Etches can give us a sense of whether or how you're feeling right now about vaccine supply and equipment. For example, the syringes needed to get the extra dose out of the Pfizer vaccine.
So maybe I can start and then I'll let Dr. Etches weigh in. First on vaccine supply, what I can say is the team is so motivated. As you saw, as soon as we receive the supply, it's used up quite quickly with the priority groups. I think we're actually improving our processes, and that's good news as we move forward. Hopefully one day we get sufficient supply to vaccinate soon the general population. So I think I'm very positive there. In general terms, as you know, there's been a slowdown of the vaccine, both Moderna and Pfizer, and so we're in this kind of situation right now that there is a bit of a gap, but we hope that'll be over in the next couple of weeks. That's what we're being told by the province, so I'm encouraged by that. What was the second part of your question?
The syringes for the extra doses of the Pfizer?
So as you remember, we had declared a state of emergency, and what that does, or it doesn't give us too many tools, but one of the tools that it gives us, it allows us to suspend some of our processes to make them much more effective and efficient, and as such, the syringes was one example, and we've had PPE as another example. We've been able to procure sufficient syringes, and we have several batches of, I forget how much the numbers, I don't have it here with me, but significant numbers coming in, so we'll be fine on that front, and we're now just awaiting the vaccine and to continue, as Dr. Etches mentioned, the next priority group, so finish our residential homes, our retirement homes rather. We want to get them all done first and then second doses, and hopefully concurrently we can do some of our Indigenous populations, so all those priority first groups, we want to get that done as quickly as possible.
And just as a follow-up, any sense then in terms of how the timeline is affected on phase 2, and will family docs and those on your mobile teams who aren't vaccinated now get it then?
Yeah, it's a little difficult to kind of give you a definitive answer. What I can say, as I was mentioning initially, our efficiency and the way things are working, people are learning, and the teams are really effective. You know, we did the 36 retirement homes in like 4 days, so we're really accelerating our processes and getting really good at it. I think that means that if we got more vaccine, we could probably pick up some of the lost time. So I'm not too worried. What I want to see is a steady flow of vaccine that's arriving on a regular basis, and then I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to pick up any lost time of these last 2 weeks.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup à tous. This is all the time that we have. C'est tout le temps que nous disposons aujourd'hui. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that the in real people, we have to maintain those bubble